Splendid day in Vancouver. We're featuring Game 1 of North American pool action this evening. First intermission, Canada leads Russia by a score of 3-1. 3 unanswered goals to give the Canadians a 2-goal cushion. Don.
What? No, look, I got to say something. I'm going to get in a lot of trouble here. But what is this, hockey night in Canada or hockey night in Russia? All I hear, how great these guys are, how there they were, Detroit, the Fabulous Five. Now I'm hearing how great they are tonight. Can't intimidate them, can't scare them. How about the time when Van Int ran over the guy and they walked off the ice? How about the time Clark broke the guy's ankle, they never won a game after? How about that? How about Messier? Wait a minute. Okay. How about Messier in Edmonton waxed the guy, 42 stitches, they wanted to go home. How about tonight? They were losing, Canada was losing 1-0 tonight. Eric Grab slaps that yellow little Kasperitis around. He hits the guy after a whistle. He submarined him, Primo, after an offside. It was 1-0. Eric grabbed the little rat, slapped him around a little, 3-1. Can't scare them. What is this? I'm sick and tired of hearing how great they are. They're down 3-1. They died, the Fabulous Five died. They are sucked, and they always have sucked. The only time we lost in the Canada Cup, what this should be called, was because when Mike Liu turned into a sieve, and we only lost 1 game. Other than that, they've done nothing. Well,
and they still suck. Blew the intro. What's happening, everybody? Welcome to In the Crease with Tommy C. My last broadcast before I got on vacation, and the likes of Dead on Dave and Joe Cronin take it over. I'll be leaving to Spain in the next couple days to enjoy my honeymoon. Why did I play that video? Why my title is Russian Hockey Still Sucks. I'm going to bring up a couple points. I'm going to tell you a story, and I'm also going to put Alex Ovechkin over as well. Because that deserves to be noted. So why am I jumping on this? And I'm generally fair to Russians, I think. And but Don Cherry brings up a good point, and we're going to go over the whole thing of Russian hockey. I guess I should be doing the playoffs right now, but I didn't know about this yesterday, and I probably would have went on a rant. According to reports, after the Canada won the World Championships in Prague, there are reports that one Covey, I guess you have an Ovi, you need a Covey. Kovalchuk, I guess, who was the captain going in until for Team Russia until Ovi got in there against Team USA and lit it up for them. Covey, apparently, during the Canadian national anthem, actually waved some of the players off the ice. So I guess, yeah, because he was captain before, but Ovi. And then Alex Ovechkin, I guess, realizing, like, you know, not only is this, like, horrible for the image that did possibly they may be breaking some rules, and I take my hats off to Ovi for trying to keep this together. It must be really frustrating when your fellow players are a bunch of classless dickheads, and we all knew Covey was a classless dickhead. Especially after what he did in New Jersey, and just kind of weaseled out of his contract, sort of phony retired so he could get a healthy contract in Russia. And we also have the habit of especially earlier in the year when we saw the World Junior Championships and how the Russians were handled in that as well, and one of the young Russian players threw their stick in the crowd, and it's disgusting. It's classless. I'm looking at Josh Cooper's article in Puck Daddy, and great. I'm having streaming issues supposedly. That's wonderful news. I'm looking at Josh Cooper's article in Puck Daddy, and this is one of the things he says. The headline is Don Cherry rips Russian World Championship team leaving ice during Canada. And at one point he says, did this take it did this take it to this level of xenophobia to a new on Monday in Coach's Corner? This is what Don Cherry said. No class, no honor. They left during the national anthem. Cherry said on his Coach's Corner segment during the first intermission of Game 2 in the Eastern Conference Final, we are the ones that stays. We're the ones that stood by while they won, and they walked off the ice. They've got no class whatsoever. I don't find that xenophobic, and it doesn't surprise me from a social justice douchebag like Josh Cooper, but it's not xenophobic to say you are unsportsmanlike. We're seeing that a lot in our society today. If you criticize something, there's obviously something in your heart that makes it worse. I do realize that Don has said lousy things about Europeans. I would not support all of them, but you walk off the ice during the playing of any national anthem. I would be disgusted if the Americans did something like this. I'm American. Yes, I know I have that going on, but that's just because I think it's cool. That's a World Cup jersey, by the way, and that was the World Cup 96 World Cup logo that we opened up with. So, I think it's legitimate criticism. I think Team Russia should be suspended. I think they should be given the most harsh suspension that's possible under the rules of the IIHF. How about a year suspension? How about no world champions next year? None. 0. Zip. Because you can't act like adults. And I feel sorry for Olvi. Olvi was raised... He has two Olympic athletes for parents. I guess they raised him with enough class. You lose, you still stand by and you watch the other anthem, as painful as it might be. I think most of us in North America are taught that. But certainly we're not, we're past that. And a lot of it has to do with Russian frustration. We are taught, Don was actually right from that 1996 World Cup video on Hockey Night in Canada, apparently. We are taught that the Russians are so much better than us and so much better than North Americans and the Canadians and their skills. And there's certainly stuff that they've brought to the NHL over the years. They definitely did. Stick handling, an emphasis on advanced stats, and the Russians really laid the groundwork for what we now call advanced stats. Skating, emphasis on skating, seeing the game at a different, the creating of plays, the beautiful pictures. But here's the ugly truth of Russian hockey. When the Russians were dominating the international scene, Canada wouldn't take part in it because the Russians were essentially fielding professionals, and the Canadians and the North Americans, the Swedes and the Finns and other countries were on the other side of the Iron Curtain, were putting their college students and juniors up. The Russians had guys that were well over 30, but because the Soviet Union didn't allow professional athletes, therefore they qualified as amateur, which was just bullshit. And these guys trained harder and longer, and it was basically indentured servitude to be professional hockey players. I mean, they worked under conditions that no sports union in North America would ever allow. 1 month off to see your family. Next 11 months training, sometimes 16 hours a day. And they're going up against guys that had to go to class. This is when Russian hockey dominated. From the 50s and 60s. Yes, the Red Army team did take NHL All-Star teams. It really had no stake. But the first major Canadian Russian clash, I think it was in 1972, referred to as the Summer Series. They lost. Now, Russia did become the second greatest hockey country after that. There's legendary battles in the Canada Cup. But of course, the Canadians wouldn't field they weren't going to send. They certainly couldn't send Phil Esposito to the Olympics because it was illegal at the time. At the time, you had to be an amateur to be in the Olympics. That changed after 1992. And by some miracle and emphasis on basically cardiovascular from Herb Brooks, they had to be in shape to beat these guys. A very simple Canadian-style game that the Americans played, hard hitting, and take advantage of turnovers, which Russian hockey does tend to produce a lot of. And turnovers lead to quick goals, especially like on the power play. We saw it last night on the Rangers. Turn over the puck, and then you can strike back, and you can keep it even. And then the wall falls. The Russians have yet to win a gold medal. They won a handful of world championships. They were handled in the 1996 World Cup by the Americans. The Americans have been consistently beating them. The Americans have replaced Russia as the number 2 country. They're clearly the number 1 country. Yes, they lost this weekend in the World Championship, but everybody knows that the World Championships have more to do with how lucky you are, whereas your best players get eliminated from the playoffs or in the first round of the playoffs. Because it's just a crapshoot. It's a nice tournament. I'm not criticizing the tournament. I think they do a great job with it, and some improvements I'd like to see, but it's still a good tournament. But if you really think about it, when the Russians are on even footing, they suck. They never win. Because you can't create all these beautiful things when you're sitting on your ass. When you have Canadian players and American players that do consider defense as a part of their game, that don't try to stick handle through everybody because it doesn't work every time, certainly doesn't work for the Russians every time, and the danger you leave by creating incredible turnovers, which is something that's really emphasized in Canadian country. Do not turn over the puck. It's not emphasized in Russian hockey. So since the wall fell, the guys that are clearly better stick handlers, better skaters, and maybe in more cases than not, more skilled than their opponents like in America, Sweden, and Canada, they don't win the big game. There's always some kind of Russian paranoia, a conspiracy theory behind it, like we saw when the Americans beat the Russians, the famous shootout with TJ Oshie. I guess it was basically TJ Oshie versus Covey and Evgeny Malkin. That's supposed to be their specialty, the shootout, stuff like that. Creative, and little TJ Oshie took on 2 superior players and ended up winning that shootout. Not crazy about the shootout, but I mean, we won it, we beat it. I was in 1996. I was in Madison Square Garden to see Team Russia versus Team USA. Team USA would go on to beat Canada to win that World Cup. Another tournament where everybody's on even footing. Russians got beat by the Americans. Russians beat the Americans earlier in this tournament. We can handle them. We're about as good, or in some days they're better than us, and some days so we're either tied for second or Russia's third. The Russians were beaten by the Czechs in 1998 when they were on even footing. When you could send all your pros over there in the final. Sweden, Czech Republic, and Canada are the only ones to win gold medals, which is really the world championship, the real world champions, if you think about it, since it became legal to send pros in 1992. I think that would have been Lillehammer. Since the wall fell. And one of the reasons they made that rule where it's not amateurs and you can let pros, because there's no way to keep these communist countries from cheating. Well, we don't have professional athletes, therefore we can send anybody. Whereas the rest of the world, the Western world, or the civilized world, is sending their college kids because it's supposed to be for amateur athletes. So they just had to scrap the rule altogether, basically because of the Eastern European countries and Russia. On even footing, Russian hockey lose. Don Cherry's right. Now, did I put this headline up there to turn some heads and piss people off? Absolutely. I don't make any shame. I'm not a reporter. I'm an opinion guy. Russian hockey on even footing has sucked. It sucks since the wall fell. When they have the advantage, and they're, if they're, 28, 27, 30-year-old guys with tons of international experience, or playing, 18, 19, and 21-year-old guys that have to go to class, they can win that event and not always check 1980. Russian hockey sucks. Is it beautiful? Are they more skilled? Yes, but here's the thing. The trick to the game is to score more goals than the other team. And if I can shut down Pavel Datsyuk, if I can shut down Alex Ovechkin, which I can with good, tough, Canadian-style defense, two-way play, then what good is it to be able to stick handle through everybody? First of all, 9 times out of 10, you're going to turn the puck over. 9 times out of 10, you're going to give it away. Why is that better than the way they do it in North America? Especially since we've been on even footing. The Canadians have dominated. And the Americans, hockey, which is really only popular in pockets, the professionals, American professionals are mostly produced in the big M's, Minnesota, Michigan, and Massachusetts, where there is hockey culture like there is in Canada, but those are only pockets of the United States. Yes, I know they're producing more players from Northern New York and what have you, and that's fantastic. But nobody has a hockey culture quite like Canada does. Even Russia, where soccer's more popular. The only thing is they have to be a little better at hockey than they are soccer. But soccer is far and away way more popular in Russia than hockey is. And they get beat. And then when they get beat, they act like jerks. If you go back and look at the game versus the Philadelphia Flyers, the Red Army team versus the Philadelphia Fire, where that Van Imp hit took place, you might think to yourself, well, that's the Philadelphia Flyers acting like jerk-offs, and that's why the Russians left. No, watch the game. You can actually have it in your own game center. The Flyers came out there and just played physical hockey. There's no dirt. Even the hit that was in question, the Van Imp hit that was in question, was just hard hockey. And they were getting embarrassed. They had a bad game. They didn't open up right. And they walked off the ice and said, this isn't ice boxing. There wasn't one fight. There wasn't one fight versus the Philadelphia Flyers. You think it was, Broad Street Bullies, 1976. Yeah, sure. I think it was 76. I watched that game about 2 years ago, just after the playoffs in 2012. The Flyers just played hard hockey. That's it. Because hard hockey beats a team full of finesse. A team full of finesse is like a team full of grinders. Doesn't work. You need skill set diversity. You need the guys that skate and move like Russians or Patrick Kane. You need the grinders. You need the snipers. You need the playmakers. You need the offensive defensemen, two-way defensemen, and defensive defensemen, which have all been forgotten since this so-called advanced stat movement. So, yes. Look, you suck is a... doesn't mean anything. It's just calling your name. Hey, you suck. But if I was going to act like a fan and you keep losing, you suck. You suck. It's not xenophobic to say you're unclassy. It's xenophobic if you say you don't belong here. Now, I do understand that Don Cherry did say stuff like that in the past. And he was 100% wrong. But he's not xenophobic, and it doesn't raise xenophobia to new levels, Josh Cooper. I'm sure you're a big free speech advocate. It's classless. The Canadians, the Americans, the Swedes, the Finns, everybody stands by when they win. Respectfully, not the Russians. And the Russians should be suspended for an entire season in the IIHF. I would have no problem with it. I don't even care if they take it out on the kids. Under 18, juniors, suspend them all. Send the message. You're going to have to act like you have class. This is the decorum for being a hockey player. It's not too much to ask. Not xenophobic. And before you guys get all pissed off at the Russians on everyone, first of all, Pavel Datsyuk, class act. I met Alexei Kovalov when I was a kid. He's only a few years older than me, but I was a teenager, and he was in his 20s in the Rangers. And he was a classy guy, wonderful guy, love the fans. He's got great instructional videos on YouTube, by the way. Check him out. Ovi, yeah, he's goofy, but he's a good person. I agree with him supporting Putin, but who knows? Maybe I'll just put his family up against the wall, the way things work over there. Koval's piece of trash. He's always been. He's classless, and we can say that. Certainly not all Russian players are. I remember Sergei. I have my favorite. Sergei Menchinov, great defensive forward center. Fourth and third line center for the New York Rangers. Got one of the first Russians to get his name in the Stanley Cup. Sergei Zubov, who I think is maybe the most underrated defenseman in my lifetime. And they know about him in Pittsburgh, and they know about him in Dallas, and what wonderful things. Nobody's saying what they have brought is not wonderful. What I'm saying is you can't have at the top level, even on the Olympic level, if you have a team full of Russians that don't take defensive, that think they can stick handle through everything, that can make dangerous passes, Canadian hockey will beat it just about every single time. Because you can't make a nice play, and you can't stick handle through 20 people when you're laying on your ass on the ice. You can't do it. Diversity wins Stanley Cups, and diversity wins gold. It is not and never will be fantasy hockey. And that's why they throw their sticks in the crowd. That's why they walk off during anthems. Because they haven't won in the modern age. All that pride for the Red Army, the oppressive government, the authoritarian government that propped up these guys, turned them into slaves, and said, look, our system is better. When that system was on even terms, they suck. They suck. Russian hockey sucks. You know where Russians are effective? When they're on a team full of snipers and grinders and defensive players. That's when they're effective. Vladimir Tarasenko. But Russian hockey by itself is a proof that advanced stats are not going to win you games, and having a team full of finesse players will not win. You need defense, diversity, and a certain amount of decorum, a certain amount of heart, and a certain amount of pride as a hockey player. The Russians believe that they are entitled, and I am not surprised with the culture that was developed during the Soviet times. They think they have a right to it. They don't think they have to earn it because they learned the right way to play hockey, even though they keep losing. Canada crushed them. And they will again. And they will years from now. And we'll still take them out every so often. You're number 3. Number 3. Number 3. That's it. I like Russian hockey. I do. There's parts of it I like. But I wouldn't want a whole team of it. Because the results are there for yourself to see when they are in even terms with more well-rounded players. And I would even go as far as basically some of the teams from the late 60s all the way up until now probably have more skilled players than the Canadians, or very simply the greatest hockey country on earth, and probably will continue if that culture continues, unless there's some kind of dramatic change. Or it just gets more popular in the United States, and Canada simply can't deal with the amount of hockey players that are coming into the game, which I don't see happening because, I don't know, I think the contact sports are a thing of the past in a couple of years. Let's just see what's going on in the NFL and the refusal to accept the responsibility that playing hockey could be dangerous to your health in later years. The solution seems to be to turning into something other than hockey, and that's a conversation for another time. So leave your hate. I don't care. I'm going to Spain. Bitch. Yeah. Let's talk about the New York Rangers last night. New York Rangers, they got crushed. Rangers get crushed by the Caps, or excuse me, the Tampa Bay Lightning. 6-2. And watch the game. Tyler Johnson with a hat trick. Looks fantastic. Boy, he looks like Martin St. Louis out there. Oh, Martin St. Louis don't look like Martin St. Louis anymore. I noticed you're starting to talk about it. There is some feeling that maybe Martin is past his prime. That he can't produce what he once had. Look, it happens. Look, he's going straight to Hall of Fame. But he may have ran out of gas last year. And maybe desired to. His mom died. And stuff like that hockey isn't so important anymore when you get real issues. Not questioning St. Louis' heart. I'm wondering if he's physically able to continue. Rick Dash, on the other hand, has no excuse. And I think I've gone over this ad nauseum. Have not the Kreiters or the Hagelins, the Hayeses, not picked up the weight for the lack of scoring production from St. Louis in the clutch, especially the clutch goals those guys have not picked up the scoring for guys that we pay to score goals like St. Louis, like Nash. The Rangers have been eliminated last round. Now, do I think it's the end for the Rangers? No. Tampa Bay is a very good team. They've beaten some very good clubs. They seem to be coming together. Bishop looks good. I think it's a bump. Rangers were so awful. The refs had laid the rules down early in this matchup, and they said, we're calling just about everything. That opened things up. That gave the advantage to Tampa Bay. Rangers weren't able to respond to it, and then things got out of hand. Do I think they will go to Tampa and win a game or split the series? Yes, absolutely. Tampa Bay could win this. Nobody said they didn't have the talent. But they're going to have to do what they're going to have to get it to an open game, and they're going to have to, capitalize, which they were able to do. No disrespect to, I think the Rangers sort of mentally collapsed, especially in the third period. Lundqvist probably gave up more goals. Forget one-goal games. They busted it wide open. And when Tampa wins, they tend to win by a lot. So you warm up that stock car. Once it's going, it ain't stopping. Something to keep in mind for Rangers coaching. Excuse me. So, but I think the Rangers can shut them down. They have superior blue line, and I don't know if I want to say superior goalie, because that's kind of relative in the playoffs. Like, you could have goalies that aren't as good as Lundqvist, play better than Lundqvist for a shorter period of time. But I'm not unhappy with Lundqvist's play. I think his defense let him down, and he got shelled, and that shit happens. Bishop looks great, that being said. But I think we can get around them. I think we're going to have to shell him so much. New Rangers are going to have to shell him to the point where, he can't stop him. And the Tampa Bay gave a lot of shots up in goal. But, again, we didn't have the Nashes to St. Louis to bury it. The guys that are paid specifically to be prolific goal scorers. We're very, very lucky that Steve Stamkos isn't firing away. Very, very lucky. Tyler Johnson is the new St. Louis. He just even looks like him out there. Short, fast, capable. Crazy. Agitating. That's something St. Louis doesn't really do anymore. He didn't get in and mix it up. St. Louis just looks old. Talk about a gray beard. And it's sad to watch, and it's not disrespect. And I think Tampa Bay Lightning fans appreciate it. He gave you guys a lot of Stanley Cup. I know he left under not comfortable circumstances. We could have that. That's a conversation for another time. But, he gave you a lot. It happened with us and Mark Messier as well. So he left, and then he came back, and after getting a fight with the general manager. I'm interested in shots on goal here. Play-by-play, Gamecast. Jesus. I wish the box scores were simpler on the net. Rangers won every single period on shots on goal. So that's a tribute to, that's 37-26. Does make Lundqvist look a little bad, but like I said, I think the defense sort of let him down. And I think the amount of penalties called, although I'm not going to sit there and say that any of the penalties weren't legit, they did call a tight by the book game. I don't have a problem with that. And when you realize that, New York Rangers, you got to adjust to it. It opened up, led to Tampa's victory. I do think the Rangers will tighten it up and they'll get this series under control, and I think they'll go on to win. Might be in Game 7, though. It's not the shots on goal. You got to create quality scoring chances. You got to give them those areas where it's impossible to stop the goal. Instead of that 6'8", 6'9", 7'2", 7'5" phenom, the Undertaker over there in net. That guy's good. He always was good. When he was in Ottawa for a little while. We always knew that I always had a feeling that Bishop will make an impact. Maybe this is his year. It is funny how if Tampa goes on to win the Stanley Cup, it's almost going to have nothing to do with Steve Stamkos. On to the other series. Tonight, Hawks, Ducks. The Ducks came in Game 1, and they used their size, and they pestered. They used Ryan Kessler to really stay all over Jonathan Toews. And the Hawks looked like a team that hadn't played in a couple days. And the Ducks look like a team that are hungry, that are not going to play up or down in their competition. They're going in to crush and destroy. Now, the Hawks are so good, so much playoff experience, so much stuff going on, that I do expect them to find a way around it. I think Jonathan Toews will find a way to deal with Kessler, but it's not going to be an easy task. That is the most important matchup. Absolutely. All the media sites are saying that, but I absolutely think if Toews can't make plays, they can't win because they have the defense, but the goalie's shaky, and it depends. We don't know what Crawford's going to show up. I think Chicago fans are used to that by now. The real scary thing is Frederik Andersen. Now, as Denon Davis pointed out, he has been inconsistent. He's good, he's bad. But I think the kid's got talent, and maybe, just maybe, this is when he shows that he's a future star in the NHL. Frederik Andersen has been amazing. Ducks went out there, Game 1, crushed, destroyed, moved forward, and didn't let their foot off the gas, which is important, which is something they did during the Calgary series, which led me to believe that the Hawks may be able to handle them. I think the Hawks go out and make a statement tonight. I think they figured out. They like they say in baseball, you take a pitch to see how they took their pitch last night. Yeah, they ended up striking out, but I anticipate the Hawks going over. Getting back in the series and evening it up, and maybe even going ahead in the next game in Chicago. Still the Chicago Blackhawks. Ducks on the other hand, they have to come out and do exactly what they did, which I expect them to do. I just don't. I don't expect them to deal with whatever Quenneville has in store for them. And you bet your boots they'll make changes. But the keys are Frederick Anderson for the Ducks. He's got to be good because the blue line is good. Nothing to write home about. And I think that's one of the biggest criticisms of the Ducks. How come they haven't won more Stanley Cups? They have Ryan Getzlaf, they have Corey Perry, and it was brilliantly pointed out that Chris Pronger and Scott Niedermayer retired, of course. That when the team developed, the blue line didn't develop with it. They didn't race at the same time because you had a lot of gray beards in the blue line. They probably should have won 2-3 Stanley Cups. Getzlaf and Corey Perry are really every bit as good as... or at least close to Taves and Kane. And they have playoff experience. The only difference is Taves and Kane's a little more recent. But I expect the Hawks to go over. Unless the Ducks can continue to pound physically, use their size to advantage, shut down Jonathan Taves, and their goalie keeps it up. Keeps it up. If the Ducks blow the Hawks out tonight, I will change my view. I'm not talking about a 1. I'm not talking about if they go down 2-0. I'm talking about another, like a 7-2 victory. That changes everything. But I don't see that happening. Because that means the Hawks didn't adapt. And now they don't have enough time to change it, turn it around. And I don't even think it's a series split in Chicago even puts them in a really bad situation. But I think they will do it, just based on their experience and, based on what I've seen in the past. And that's it. All right, everybody. I'm leaving. I'm going. In a few days, I'm going to be gone. I'm leaving the show to Dead on Dave and Joe Cronin. He'll take on In the Crease with Tommy C for the next couple weeks. Give him a break. The man just had a stroke, but I think he's going to do fine talking to him today for a long time. Actually, what we were talking about was apparently there's... Now, I'm going to talk openly about this. I know Dave doesn't want me to, but apparently there's another group of guys that are saying horrible things about Tommy NC 220. But I got to be honest with you. I really can only take care of my own and not tolerate in my own community. If I dedicated all my shows to attacking absolutely everybody that attacks Tommy NC, it wouldn't have much of a show. But there is this sort of desire to defend him as our little brother, but we can't. And the stuff I saw... the stuff I saw on this channel was really awful. It was just, they took his Tosh.0 appearance and it wasn't even funny, and they criticized it. It was obviously jealousy because they're not on Tosh.0. And it was just like, oh God, look at his shoes. They're dumb. Oh, he's retarded. Oh, he's ugly. It wasn't even like funny. It was just like, oh, you believe this idiot thinks that? I'm talking about an autistic man here. But I am starting to realize that this is never going to end. There's always, and it does give you pause to realize, like, there are people that have zero problem with picking on people with disabilities. Like, you might not know them, but you have sort of the anonymity of the internet, and maybe just not giving a fuck, being a psycho. It's okay. Well, Tommy really can't do anything wrong in my eyes, but Joe put out a video about it, and I'll be honest with you, I flagged the channel. And I flagged the channel, and I know it's like, oh, you're a free speech guy, what have you? Nah, yes and no. I'm a free speech guy. But I also have to work under the policies, YouTube's policies of bullying, and their one particular policy, this is the flag that I used against this group, abusing a vulnerable person. Well, Tommy has autism. This is he makes him a vulnerable person. He is a public figure, and this is what Tommy's going to have to realize over time. Tommy's going to have to realize that there's just horrible people out there that are not going to support him and maybe take advantage or try to make fun of him. And they weren't even making fun of him. It was like, look what he's done. He's so dumb. He takes pictures of his food on Instagram. Wow, he's acting like he's 7. He's disabled. Wasn't anything funny or clever or anything like that. And Joe put a video out about it, and it's disgusting. And I flagged it. I think that's all you can do. And I flagged it under I take advantage of a vulnerable person. Now, I'm not going to turn this into the Tommy NC's hit squad. I can't deal with it. There's too many psycho fucks out there. But I think in these situations, I don't think this is a free speech issue. It was one thing if they just put it on and made fun of it. But this is more of an attack of somebody who can't defend themselves, really. But I don't have time to defend them all the time. I don't even know how effective it is. So you see stuff like that, and I think it falls under this violated YouTube's terms of service agreement, which I am bound to as well. I can get flagged for similar reasons. And one of those reasons is abusing somebody who is vulnerable. I think Tommy qualifies. There was another one called bullying that I wasn't too happy with because it's too general. But I guess if I fucking made a string of goddamn videos attacking Dave, a string, like constant, using that to, that is bullying, I guess. And I think this qualifies as bullying too, because apparently there's some long feud with these middle-aged men have a long feud with an autistic 24-year-old man. Okay. I flagged it. I think that violates YouTube. Could it happen to me? I don't think I'm bullying anybody. And first of all, I'm taking on people that can defend themselves, like Ryan Lambert, Greg Wyshynski, and what have you. And they can always block me on Twitter, and that's the end of it. Criticism isn't bullying, but I just they're not even criticizing his appearance in Detached. They're it doesn't even come close to that. They're not even criticizing his appearance. They're criticizing his goal to have a YouTube channel and just like, oh wow, look at his shoes, look at his shirt, his store is stupid. Nothing creative or funny. Nothing interesting. And all I got a right to say that. Yeah, they do. But not on YouTube. And YouTube's got a policy against attacking vulnerable people. No, I flagged it. Maybe you will too. I don't know. And I don't have a problem with it. Now, I'm not saying, I think it's lousy if you go around flagging people that, the Bruce Blitz situation, flag anybody you suspect of, or aren't breaking the rules, flag our enemies. I think it's lousy. Flagging, political opinions you disagree with are lousy by framing them as bullying or framing them as racist when it's maybe a criticism like I think we should limit immigration. Well, you're obviously a racist then. That's trash. But things like suicides, violence, hate speech. It's against policy, and that's why YouTube can't police anybody, and that's why we have this stuff. And before you think I've run a riot as policy myself, well, I'm susceptible to it too. And I don't think I'm a bully, and I think if the people I go after are not disabled, or the idiots that call my shop, walk into this stuff. I mean, I'm gonna pop you. That's all I got to say about that. And I think we do have to police ourselves as a YouTube community. The problem with the self-policing is there's no way to stop. Like, I evaluated this situation. I think it fell under violated YouTube's terms of agreement. It's the first person I ever flagged, by the way, and realized it meant it. And sure. But at the same time, people are going to come and say horrible shit about Tommy. And he does want to be famous. He does want to be a public figure. So it's going to happen. Maybe it doesn't. And if somebody could explain to me that it doesn't affect or this doesn't apply to Tommy because he's trying to be a public figure, well, please come explain that shit to me. Please. I mean, if they just put, let's touch point, this is the autistic guy and he's kind of funny and look with this stuff and didn't play the entire thing and not say one thing creative. It's just like, oh God, this sucks. Oh God, this sucks. Oh God, this sucks. Oh God, this sucks. Oh, no, it wasn't designed to be entertaining. It was just designed to sort of let off steam that you can't compete with an autistic guy. And that's really what it comes down to. 8 years on YouTube. Only, 400 more subs than me. And Tommy just broke 3. So you can look into that if you want. I am done. I am out of here. Had some people ask me about slideshow or some of my wedding stuff. Here it is. It's the picture thing's like a German thing. I don't get it. You have to hold a. I guess it's ironic. There's my beautiful bride and some relatives. Yep, and that's Dead on Dave there in the corner, and he's marrying us. Of course, we did like a bilingual stereo, one German, one English delivery, and there's me getting the ring, and that's some more of my bride's relatives. It's a really wonderful time, beautiful place we stayed at. Kind of dug it. Hope you enjoyed those pictures. And I'm just about, in a few days I'll be out of here. And I'm retiring until I come back. I'm not exactly sure when I'm getting back, but I'll probably be back before the end of the Stanley Cup final. Might do a party too. Get some kind of party, a late night thing or something like that. Especially if unless the Rangers are in it, where I'm going to not be able to function. Also, I'm like at a 2-minute delay, so I'm not listening to you guys cheer. So I can that's happened. So the Rangers aren't in it. We'll have a friggin' big party, sort of like the bachelor party. That will be a thing of the future, by the way. The parties will be a thing of the future. Shot from the point party. Let's try that again. Wish we could do them all the time. We can't. It's a mega podcast. And for those of you who couldn't be at the wedding, I made a video, and I'll tell you a little bit about his story. I was actually married legally in 2004 in Copenhagen, and there was reasons for that. I was leaving the umbrella of the Army, which give me 6 months to become legal here, and yes, it speeded up the process, and I was in a custody battle at the time with my daughter, or with my ex-wife. So we decided to go around that, get married, and plan a wedding a year apart, which we did 364 days later, almost a year to the day. And the planning began in Copenhagen right away. So essentially we were married legally before, but this I feel like a newlywed now more so than last year, because although the ceremony was nice in Copenhagen, it was just us, and it was more of a legality. Although I was surprised that it wasn't just stamp, get out. It wasn't that. The Danish actually put this wonderful ceremony together. The funny thing is, Danish Ranger Kim Hansen told me, a lot of people don't know this, but or at least traditionally, I don't know what's changed since. Denmark is like the Las Vegas of Europe, and soldiers have known this for generations. Just run up to Denmark, just show them a birth certificate, they'll marry you. They'll even give you a ceremony. That's the way it's always been. It's been a way to. I'm not going to get into it. It's been sort of abused even in American eyes or what have you. But this has always been the case. Most Danish, I found out, don't know this. Well, they found out because it has been a way to get around immigration over here for a while. And where it really wouldn't have been a way for me because I already had a daughter living here and I could have applied that way. It's just if I was married and I had a daughter and we were planning on getting married anyway, there was no way for my ex-wife to kind of take a shot at my daughter. And it's actually solved the problem. Once I got married, my wife seemed to throw up the divorce towel into the ring and say, all right, let's act like human beings and see each other do it every 2 weeks and work with each other. And I guess you are staying here for good. So it did help. And now me and my ex-wife have a much better relationship, which is certainly better for my daughter. And so that's the video initially takes over in Copenhagen. And I chose a song because when I first got out of the Army, I was still in the reserves, so I had to go once a month. I was working 10 o'clock to 6 o'clock in the morning, and I was going to school after I went to sleep at 5 o'clock at night. So this was a really hard thing, and I needed to go to school, use a 911 GI Bill to pay the ridiculous rent in Wiesbaden. Now, unfortunately, my ex-wife realized that, and there's simply the money just ran out. And I think that was the strategy, the grind strategy. So I would go home. Once I go home, file for abandonment, and I could never see my daughter again. Well, my wife came into my life, current wife, my newlywed, and you know, we sort of accidentally fell in love. Just kind of worked out. And she initially moved in with me, and I faced her up, and I said, I can't go to school anymore and make this money, because if I miss a day with my daughter, then my wife runs to court for every little thing. That drains my money even more, my time. I get in trouble at work. I was like, can we, you know, we've been together a while. Can we move this over to your place? And it worked. And we got married a year afterwards. And then it's basically a grind down philosophy by my opponent from that my wife's law firm, which they lost. Now I'm all set to start working over here, and I'm legal. I got essentially to a green card, and I'll never forget this. I was doing this for we were together like a year and a half or something like that, and I still had access to this special sort of vacation home area in southern Germany that only soldiers are allowed to for coming back from war. But I had access because I was still in the reserves, and I could get on post. And you know, you still have to pay regular hotel prices, but it's a beautiful, beautiful place. And I hadn't listened to radio in a while, and I started to realize like I hadn't had a day off in a year and a half. Like, well, any kind of time. The only time when I had a day off, I had to spend it with my daughter, because you know, if I'm missing those, then they can say, well, you're not seeing your daughter, which was very important to show the court. And then I realized I did get some time off. I changed jobs within my job, and they allowed me like 4 days off. And then we went down there and had like a mini vacation. And I realized I hadn't listened to music in a long time, because I was either with my daughter, out reserves, or in school. And I realized like I had no time for myself. This was literally nothing. I had no hobbies, no nothing, no YouTube, no anything. And I remember like thinking like, I haven't heard music. And I heard this song. And that became our wedding song, and it just reminds me of the time when I realized, like, wow, there's more than life than just working anywhere from 14 to 16 hours a day and then not having any weekends off. And then when you have reserves, I have to tell my ex-wife I can't see my daughter this weekend because I'm bound by law to go to reserves. Yes, we have them here in Germany as well. And then having to answer for that in court, even though I'm feeling my absolute legal obligation to continue in the reserves, which was more money so I could stay here. But I went broke, but they lost. And then I heard this song, and it just represented absolutely everything I was feeling at that moment. Everything. About the way I was feeling about this woman, about my past, about what had led me up to this moment. It was all there. Take it easy, everybody, and I'll see you very, very soon. Please stay tuned for more episodes in the Crease with Tommy C, taken over by Dead on Dave and Shot from the Point live, 3 p.m. Sundays. I'll see you during the Stanley Cup final. And this is the end of our story. See ya.
Well, everyone, welcome here to Copenhagen City Hall. My name is Jakob Skov, and it's my privilege to be able to perform your ceremony today. Are you guys ready?
Absolutely.
Excellent. I believe that this day will be one of the most important days of your lives.
I've been trying to do it right. I've been living a lonely life. I've been sleeping here instead. I've been sleeping in my bed. I've been sleeping in my bed. So show me family, all the blood that I will bleed. I don't know where I belong. I don't know where I went wrong, but I can write a song. I belong with you, you belong with me, you're my sweetheart. I belong with you, you
And so I ask you, Thomas Vaughan Callanan, will you take Andrea Marina Funk to be your wife?
I will.
And in the same way, I ask you, Andrea Marina Funk, will you take Thomas Vaughan Callanan to be your husband? You have now declared your marriage, and I therefore proclaim that you're now husband and wife. Congratulations.